Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Biographical Encyclopedia, Volume 1, and this article is entitled Law, William, William Law. So it may ring a bell, it may not. I'm doing these slightly out of order, and the reason being is that I have a cold, so I'm trying not to strain my voice, and this one is particularly short. I will be back to our regular scheduled program as soon as I'm feeling a little bit better. Anyway, so William Law, this article is quite short. He was the second counselor in the first presidency under Joseph Smith, and that was from 19 which century are we in? Can you tell I have a cold? Okay, 1841 until 1844. And so that it was with Sidney Rigdon as first counselor. Anyways, that was a thing. So what do I know about William Law? Nothing. Other than the fact that he served in the first presidency, I basically know nothing about him. So I thought we would take a look at him, because I suspect that not many people know anything about him either. So let's take a look. Law, William, second counselor to President Joseph Smith from 1841 to 1844, was born 8 September 1809. 1809, that makes him slightly younger than Joseph Smith himself. In the early days of the church, when elders John Taylor and Almond W. Babbitt labored in Canada as missionaries, William Law, who lived 25 miles from Toronto, became a convert to Mormonism. Oh, so he was part of the Toronto party. John Taylor was in that party, who joined the church and moved to Kirtland, I believe. And it is stated in the history of Joseph Smith that he arrived in Nauvoo. Okay, my bad. He went straight to Nauvoo. Nauvoo, Illinois, in the latter part of 1839, with a company of saints traveling in 7 wagons from Canada. Among which was John Taylor, He soon became a prominent man in Nauvoo, where he served as a member of the municipal council, a captain in the Nauvoo Legion, etc. He also kept a store. Why does everybody have a store back then? That was so weird. He also kept a store, owned several mills, and was considered wealthy. Okay. In the revelation given through Joseph the prophet at Nauvoo, January 19, 1841, he was called to the office of second counselor to President Joseph Smith, succeeding Hyrum Smith, who was called to the position of presiding patriarch. Soon afterwards, he filled a short mission to the east and was for a season considered a good and faithful man. He was among the chosen few who, on May 26, 1843, received their endowments under the administration of Joseph the prophet, and who were instructed in the priesthood and on the new and everlasting covenant. Towards the close of 1843, he began to show symptoms of apostasy, and associated himself with the enemies of Joseph and the saints generally. Well, that was kind of a strange time, because there was a whole bunch of apostates in 1836, and that was because of the failure of the Kirtland Bank. But this was way after that. Oh, that's so weird. Okay. This led to this excommunication from the church, April 18, 1844, in a council meeting held at Nauvoo and attended by the leading authorities of the church. Okay, because I thought he was in the first presidency until Joseph Smith's death, but that's not true. Joseph Smith was killed in July, I believe, of the same year, but it was a few months earlier. After this occurrence, William Law came out openly as an enemy and was one of the promoters and owners of the libel sheet called the Nauvoo Expositor, published at Nauvoo. His name is classed in history with those of his brother Wilson Law, Robert D. Foster, Charles A. Foster, Francis M. Higbee, Chauncey L. Higbee, Joseph H. Jackson, Sylvester Emmons, and others who were the instigators and abettors of the murder of Joseph and Hyrum Smith. Oh gosh, was he there? Oh, he might have been there. Gosh, that's a serious fall from grace there, You go from one of the presidency of the church to murderer. That's awful. In 1887, he was interviewed by a newspaper reporter at Schulzburg, Lafayette County, Wisconsin, where he then resided with his son, Judge Thomas Law. On that occasion, he still exhibited great animosity toward Joseph the Prophet. Why? What did he ever do to you? And the Mormon people, and related some extraordinary stories concerning his experience with the saints at Nauvoo. The interview was published in full as part of an appendix to an anti-Mormon work entitled The Prophet of Palmyra, written by Thomas Griggs in Hamilton, Illinois. William Law died at Schulzburg, Wisconsin, January 19, 1892, in the 83rd year of his age. Well, they didn't do very well on, the biography part, but, they got the highlights of his involvement with the church, that's for sure. Gosh. But, how can you hate someone who you basically helped murder? Besides the fact that Joseph Smith never killed anybody, yeah? I mean, he may have made some unsound business decisions in the past, and you may or may not believe what he said he saw. However, there's no reason to hate him. He didn't hurt you, you know? Ugh. Sheesh. All right, let's take a look at Wikipedia to see if there's anything a little more detailed about his life. All right. Here we go. William Law. He looks kind of funny. His brow is all furrowed. I wonder why. Did he naturally have a furrowed brow, or is he doing that for the picture? I don't know. He had a neck beard. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It was very in style at the time. I'm not criticizing anyone who had them, but I think they look a little silly today. Even thinking about it, it's okay. If it makes you happy, sure. All right, William Law, September 8, 1809 to January 19, 1892, was an important figure in the early history of the Latter-day Saint movement, holding a position in the church's first presidency under Joseph Smith, Jr. Law was later excommunicated for apostasy from the church and was founder of the short-lived True Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Of course he was. In this capacity, he published a single edition of the Nauvoo Expositor, the destruction of which set in motion a chain of events that eventually led to Smith's death. Oh my gosh. So he was partly to blame. Oh my gosh. He's going to have to answer to that in the afterlife. Holy cow. Alright, biography. Law was born in County Tyrone, Ireland, to Richard Law and Anne Hunter as the youngest of 5 children. There we go, a little more biography here. His older brother was Wilson Law. The Law family moved to the United States around 1820. Law eventually ended up in Churchville, Upper Canada, and at the age of 24 married Jane Silverthorne, who was 19 years old. Law and Silverthorne had 8 children, 2 daughters, and 6 sons. Okay. Law and his wife joined the Church of Christ in 1836 in Canada through the proselytizing efforts of John Taylor and Almon W. Babbitt. In 1839, Law led a group of Canadian saints to Nauvoo, Illinois, and in 1841, Joseph Smith chose him to be a member of the First Presidency. Okay, they could have said they joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because then it would be a little more clear. In 1836, and then they moved to Illinois in 1839, a couple years later, yeah? He was also a member of the Nauvoo City Council. Okay. Over time, Law became troubled by certain practices of Smith. He felt Smith was confusing church and state roles in Nauvoo by evading extradition to be tried for crimes in Missouri. Yeah, but he didn't cause any crimes in Missouri. He wasn't even there that long, except for to be in prison. He also thought Smith used his church authority to sway political outcomes. However, it was Smith's covert practice of polygamy and his alleged advances toward Law's wife Jane that caused Law to completely separate himself. Okay, well, let's, in theory, let's say that this did happen, okay? Even if it did, there's no reason to kill him, yeah? You just move away and say, we're not interested, we don't want anything to do with this, and then you separate yourself from that. That's fine. You don't try and kill someone. So even if that did happen, which I am still skeptical about because we only have his word on it, then it's like the covert practice of polygamy, that was true. Joseph Smith had several other wives. I'm not sure if he ever showed interest in marrying Jane, who was William Law's wife. But, like, even if he did, there's no reason to kill him. Okay, rumors circulated that Smith had made several proposals to Jane under the premise that she would enter a polyandrous marriage with Smith. Law and his wife confirmed these rumors were partly true. Okay, like I said, it might have happened. I wasn't there, but, like, still no reason to kill him. However, according to Alexander Neubauer, Jane Law had actually asked to be sealed to Smith after he had refused to seal her to William. Oh, it's because he wasn't following the rules, right? So he wasn't temple worthy, so he couldn't seal them? According to the rumors, Smith had denied the couple because William was guilty of adultery. There you go. Oh, gosh, it's always the guilty who accuse other people of being guilty. It's so weird. William had confessed his actions to Smith, though he did not tell Jane his reasons. In committing the sin, Law felt that he had transgressed against his own soul. Well, you did. Good job. Jeez. Years later, according to Anne Eliza Young, 19th wife of Brigham Young and later critic of polygamy and Mormonism, Jane stated that Smith visited her at night. He knew Law would not be home and proposed to her, suggesting it was God's will that she enter into a polyandrous marriage with him. Young's account states that Jane Law stated, it's very hearsay, isn't it? Young's account states that Jane Law stated that Smith had asked her to give him half her love. She was at liberty to keep the other half for her husband. This sounds really sketchy to me. It doesn't sound like Joseph Smith at all. I mean, honestly, he had like 20 wives anyway. Like, why would he be so fixated on this one? It doesn't make sense. Like, even if he was interested in her, he didn't marry her. So, moving on, you know? His life was too short to have been so fixated on one person. She refused Smith's request to marry him as a polyandrous plural wife. In contrast to her claim, Smith stated Jane had thrown her arms around his neck and requested to be sealed to Smith if she could not be sealed to William Law, and Smith turned down the request. See, that sounds more plausible to me. Law still believed Mormonism was true, but he viewed Smith as a fallen prophet. Yeah, you're the fallen prophet, dude. Jeez. Adulterer. Okay, on January 8th, 1844, Law was informed he was no longer a counselor to Smith in the First Presidency. Yeah, shocking. He was shocked and frustrated. Oh my gosh. He demanded a rehearing of his case. What the heck? Because the procedures for removal from the First Presidency had not been followed. What procedures? Joseph Smith was the president of the church. He chooses his counselors. So he says, no, I don't want you as my counselor. Like, that's the procedure, you know? Gosh. The rehearing was granted. Well, that's very fair of them. And on April 18th, 1844, he was tried again. However, this time he was tried as if he were a private member and not a high-ranking church official. Once again, he felt this went against church protocol. It doesn't matter. You're being judged by your own actions, dude. The following day, he was informed of his excommunication on grounds of apostasy. At this point, he felt Smith was beyond saving, and that it was his duty to expose him and the rest of the Mormon community. That's so funny, because it's always the people who, like, they're just so sour afterwards. People who once thought it was true are the ones who work the hardest against it after. It's so weird. Law met privately after his excommunication with other opponents of Smith and formed a group. Shortly thereafter, Law created the True Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and became its president, because of course he knows better than everyone else. On June 7th, 1844, Law and his followers published the Nauvoo Expositor, a newspaper that outlined Law's contentions against Smith, including the then secret practice of plural marriage. The reaction to the newspaper was not what Law expected, and after 2 days of consultation, the printing press was ordered destroyed by Smith and the Nauvoo City Council. It was destroyed later that day. See, when they say destroyed, they're not ripping it apart, they're dismantling it. Yeah, they're taking it apart, using a wrench, and a screwdriver. They're not using a hammer, Smith was later arrested and taken to nearby Carthage, Illinois, on charges relating to the destruction of the Expositor. On June 27th, 1844, Smith was killed by a mob. Oh, I thought it was July, but okay, June. For many years, Law was accused of being a member of the leader of the mob that killed Smith. He probably was. However, Law's diary states that he was not in Carthage at the time of the murder, though he had been present there earlier in the day. What do you think? Was he part of it? Was he not part of it? Oh, it's hard to say. He sounds like a great guy, just awesome. Law expressed outrage and remorse at Smith's death in his private journal. Okay, that speaks more towards him not being there, but maybe something that he started got out of hand, yeah? Law's opinion was that Smith's goal to demoralize the world, to give it to Satan, his master. He claimed to be a god, whereas he was only a servant of the devil, and as such he met his fate. Jeez, that's so flippin' spiteful. In 1887, Law agreed to be interviewed reflecting on his experience with Mormonism. This interview, along with 3 letters by Law, were published in the Salt Lake Tribune. Of course they were. Salt Lake Tribune was anti-Mormon for years. It's not as much anymore, but boy, it has a past. Law eventually moved to Shullsburg, Lafayette County, Wisconsin, where he died in 1892 at the age of 82. And they say nothing about what he did in between. That's funny, because it's so funny. People like this I find fascinating, because I'm sure he did something with his life. I don't know what it was. Like, you also don't know what he did as a job, except that at one point he had a store and he was considered wealthy. So did he have enough money to just retire at age like 30? Or, I don't know, did he do something else with his life? Did he invent things? Did he become a doctor? Did he work a farm? Was he a school teacher? I don't know. Like, he could have been any of those things, or none of them. I don't know. And I hate that they don't mention it at all. I would say, was he part of the mob that killed Joseph Smith? I don't know. He said he wasn't. I don't know. Maybe not. What do you think? Do you think he was? I mean, based on this information we have? Based on the information we have, I think that it's impossible to say for sure. Do I think he was? No. I actually suspect that he wasn't, but that it was simply cowardice on his part that he wasn't. That he realized it had gone out of control farther than he thought it would, like a bigger deal than he expected. He didn't expect them to get so riled up, so eventually he left, just before they stormed the jail and killed the prophet and his brother and severely wounded John Taylor. These are people who've never hurt anyone. Like I said, even if it were true that Joseph Smith came on to his wife, in that case you say, I don't appreciate that. You don't do that to my wife. I want you to stay away from her, and you remove yourself from the situation. That is how you deal with that. You don't try to get someone arrested and killed. That's ridiculous. Besides that, the thing is, Joseph Smith wasn't arrested for destroying the Nauvoo expositor. He was arrested for perjury. If you can look it up, go ahead and Google it. But he was arrested for perjury, which is lying under oath. So what does that have to do with the Nauvoo expositor? It doesn't have anything to do with it. And yeah, and the thing is, it was very anti-Mormon, and it was publishing lies, which as the head of the church and one of the leaders of the community in Nauvoo, I could see why Joseph Smith wanted it stopped. But I don't think that it was inappropriate what Joseph Smith did. I do not think that he came on to William Law's wife, although it's not impossible that he propositioned them. He was a bit spontaneous at that time. Joseph Smith was in general, but he was, when it came to wives, like a lot at the time because he felt led to marry a whole bunch of people, and there was one who had already been married. And so I don't know if he hadn't approached them and asked, but if the answer was no, I don't see him pushing it. I just don't see him pushing it. He's too spontaneous for that. You know, somebody pushes it and is like, no, I don't want this. And you're like, okay. And you immediately back off. Do I believe that his wife came on to him and wanted to be sealed to him? That happened a lot back then. I think that that's much more likely. I understood that happened at least 2 or 3 times that I had heard about. So having one of them be William Law's wife, because he himself was not worthy to be sealed to her, does make sense to me. Like, it rings more true compared to the other. Now, I'm not someone who would sit here and say, oh no, this person was a leader in the church and they're perfect. No. Like, even people I admire a lot had flaws and they make mistakes. I am not someone who does that. And if you hadn't known that about me, you know, see a couple of my previous videos. See my video on J. Reuben Clark. Or Charles W. Nibley. Yeah. Reed Smoot. Yeah. Like, there's a handful of people that I solidly criticize in here. Including William Law. I would not, however, I feel like I have a pretty good bead on Joseph Smith and the kind of person he was. What kinds of things he would do and what he wouldn't. And could he have propositioned that family? Yes, I actually think that that's possible. Do I think that he really pushed it? No, I don't think that's his style at all. And do I think that she came on to him? Possible. I don't know, maybe. I don't know her well enough to know that. Do I think that Joseph Smith wanted them to be in like some sort of foursome? No, that's not his style. Plus, Emma would never have gone for it. She hated polygamy anyway. That's where I'm at right now. William Law, I don't like you. No, I don't like you. I hope you learned something from that today, though. I found that really interesting, and hopefully my voice will be up to it next week, because Oliver Cowdery was coming up, and I think that would be quite interesting as well. So hopefully my voice is up to it. Anyway, if you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.